trust, empowering and promoting the work of your library team. And we have Meghan Kowalski here, who is the Outreach and Reference Librarian at the University of DC and Washington, DC, here to lead us today. So I'll hand it over to her.
Thank you, Devin. First, thank you for joining us today. I hope everyone is having as wonderful a day as we can expect at this spooky/election season time of the year, but hopefully everyone is having a great day. My name is Meghan Kowalski. As Devin said, I'm the Outreach and Reference Librarian of the University of the District of Columbia. We are DC's, essentially their state school, even though we're not a state. We are the only public institution in the district, and we are actually an HBCU. Prior to this, I worked at Catholic University in technical services where I was a manager. And I want to point out that what I'm going to talk about today may be mostly directed towards supervisors and managers, but this can be done, this kind of work can be done by anyone. I am no longer in a formal managing role, but leadership and promoting your team can come from anywhere. So just keep that in mind as we work. And so Devin, if you want to go ahead and drop the link to the Padlet in the chat, I will be popping over there to the second. Devin's going to drop the link. There's also a QR code if you prefer that. And I just want to get this started with some brainstorming. So share a story of when you promoted the work of someone on your team. This could be someone you supervised or a colleague. It doesn't have to be in the library world, but just essentially, what work did you promote? But more importantly, why did you promote it? I wanted to start by showing that many of us are already doing this sort of promotional work, but we can do a whole lot more. So just leaving this up for a few more seconds, and then I will pop on over to the Padlet. See everything as it comes in here. Always fun to see those dancing circles. Anytime someone is published or presents at a conference, that is a great one. And I want to point out that a lot of us don't realize our colleagues are publishing and presenting at conferences. That's a great thing to share, not only because we should celebrate when someone achieves such a milestone, but also because it helps us break down silos and we can try to find collaborators who also do this kind of work. So that's a great one. New hires. I was onboarding a buddy for a new coworker on my team last year and made a point to promote her management of a major project of the team. I felt like it was important to share her work and acknowledge that she's growing into her role and is super creative too. Yes, anytime we can promote someone's creativity, particularly if they're new, to the team, that is helpful. It helps create that team cohesion that can be missing sometimes. We end every 10 meeting with staff wins, challenges, and shout outs. The shout outs are one way to build in time each week to thank and promote the efforts of someone on our team. Yes, thanks and gratitude are incredibly important. Again, it helps build that cohesion and it acknowledges the good work people are doing. Sharing positive feedback of stories we hear from our patrons. Yes, I love that one. We have started in our staff newsletter that goes out every month, adding a kudos, because while I may see all the feedback our students and faculty send us, the rest of the library staff doesn't. And so being able to promote that within a newsletter is a great thing. Promoting outreach events that split amongst team members. Yes, it's finding that balance. And so I'm going to leave this Padlet open in case anyone else wants to share. Now I'm going to pop back out over to the slides. Working with two screens here. I just want to make sure everything's all set up. All right. So I want to say, let's be honest, for the most part, we are really bad at promoting ourselves in general, but particularly as a profession. Every time I try to put one of my colleagues in a position where they can promote themselves, most of them be like, oh, I don't want to. There's this sort of humble feeling in the library. And there's partly a gendered basis for this. Women and most of our profession tends to be women, are socialized not to boast. It comes across as bragging. We get called power hungry or egotistical. This can also be racialized. Minoritized populations are socialized not to, make waves, lest they upset the boat of how things have always been done. So think about the last time you promoted yourself. I am certain that you are awesome, but what did that feel like? How did you feel when you were promoting yourself? I know every time I try to promote my awesome work and I have a whole website devoted to it, I feel kind of icky. And every time someone says, "Oh, you did this wonderful thing," I get kind of shy. I am known to turn bright red and blush, and if this is how you feel, it is likely worse for the people on your team, particularly if you are a manager or a supervisor. You know, you should be a cheerleader so you can make this sort of work okay and make it more normal for people to promote themselves. Um, and I do want to start with a note of caution. Some of this work I'm going to talk about must be handled delicately and should be opt-in. And this is where we start to talk about trust. This is where trust comes into play. Some people just don't like to be talked about by others, and you have no business asking why. You have to trust them and they have to trust you. This is a mutual experience. So whenever you start to do this kind of work, particularly if you don't, this is new and you haven't worked so much in this area, ask permission first to share and promote if you are at all uncertain. Most people will be like, okay, some might even be like super excited. Others are going to be like, no, thank you. I do not want to draw attention to myself. So just keep that in mind as you go forward with this. And so why don't people promote themselves more? Well, first, there are hierarchies. You know, People don't think that they are in a position to promote themselves outside of their department, or in some cases, even within their department. And the bigger your department, the more this is true. And this can be related to office politics. This is a game that most of us hate, but it is constant. People who promote their work or the work of others are often seen as, offenders of bad office politics, and instead of just promoting the good work of others, they're sometimes seen as, why are they doing this? What's in it for them? It can feel like, there are trades being made, and a lot of office politics results from there being low levels of trust within an organization. And so as you do this sort of work, you're going to see this and you might have to navigate some office politics. People don't promote themselves because they often feel imposter syndrome. At some point in our lives, we all feel like we are faking it. We can be excellent at our job and still feel like we are waiting for people to notice our faults. Promotion of good work comes with attention, and some people are afraid that that attention will uncover weaknesses. Essentially, we don't trust in ourselves. And so that's another reason some people might shy away from this sort of work. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, it just doesn't feel right. Sometimes it just feels icky. There are emotions wrapped up in promoting the good work, that we have done and that others have done. And so this can be a little bit difficult to muddle through. But there is a harm in not promoting good work, and some of the harms are big and some are small. And hiding our team's strengths is not a good thing. So first of all, credit doesn't get shared. When we don't talk about so and so did this wonderful thing, we don't really give that full responsibility and credit to the good work that someone has done. It can also cause stagnation, and this can occur on a personal or a team level. And this hides skills and opportunities for growth and innovation. Not sharing the good work of others also promotes silos because it keeps skill sets in one area. And this can stymie workflows. One person in another department might have a really good idea, but if that doesn't get shared, we can lose that sense of innovation. And finally, it ignores who we are as a whole person. We are people with achievements both inside and outside of the office. And so we should celebrate who we are as whole human beings. So how to get started is you have to learn about your team. And there are many ways you can do this. So first is make it okay. Brag about yourself and ask others to share. You can do this in meetings, through emails, any sort of space where you gather. You can start this work small and work your way up. And the more you do it, the more it will become okay. And the more your team will learn to trust in this process. You can always ask for feedback, for input, for stories and idea sharing. Again, the more you ask, the more feedback you will get and the more normalized this sort of sharing becomes. And one way you can do this is through meetings. And there's a process I call asking 5 questions. And those 5 questions are, you have a one-on-one meeting with your teammate or, your employee on your team, and you ask, what's going on? Just what are they working on? What's happening in their lives? You can ask them, what do they like about their work? And then what do they not like about their work, to see the pros and cons of their position. Then you can also ask them, what do you want to be working on? Some people might say, I would love to take on this new project, but I don't know if I can. And again, this is where trust comes in. And finally, you can ask, as a manager, what can I do better? And again, this starts to develop trust. So listen when people talk and take notes for later. And then you can ask for permission to share what you learn. And this can be in the moment or after the fact. Again, you're developing that trust to give and take to help both your team member and your entire department and organization grow. And then when people are finally comfortable with this, you can make learning about your team routine and ongoing. And you can create public spaces to encourage this kind of growth. And that can be through surveys and feedback collection spots. You can put call outs for information within office communications. I am constantly asking my colleagues, brag about yourself. I want to put something in the newsletter. And I've gotten everything from I ran a marathon to, hey, I have a new baby, things like that. And you can always ask, would anyone like to share an achievement within a meeting? And don't make that specifically work related, again, because we want to get back to seeing who we are as a whole person. And again, all of this is a give and take. It builds a resilient trust between supervisors and people on a team. And so, how do you promote your team? This is where you get to be a cheerleader. And I'm going to share some methods for doing this. By no means all of the methods that are out there, but these are some of the most popular ones. And some of these may not work for your office culture. But I want to note that sometimes it's the office culture that needs to change. So do keep that in mind. So start with what works for you and then grow from there. So first things first, share. And this is particularly true if you are a manager or supervisor. You should say, it was this person's idea. Do not take credit for your team's good ideas. Taking credit for someone else's ideas and good work is the opposite of building trust. And so you always want to give credit and share up. So you're promoting so people get seen for their good work throughout the structure of an organization. And this can be done in one-on-one meetings. If you have a one-on-one meeting with your boss, or if you have an entire staff meeting, you can share up in that space. Then you also want to consider repeating what people said. And this is simple as saying, I would like to know what she said. I would like to know what, Daryl said. And then give them a chance to build on you, giving that, opportunity for them to share their good work. And this has taken on a new life in intersectional action to promote the ideas of women and minoritized employees, because they're often overlooked or ignored, or their ideas later get attributed to white and male colleagues. So it's important to constantly throw back. So we have to do this a lot, where we can say things, to get back to what Sharon said, or I want to reiterate what Mike said. Can we hear from Daryl again? They were the one who started this idea. Try to give opportunities for your team member to talk about themselves. Again, you are trusting in what they will say because you know they have done good work. And then you can always get back to the idea of saying, hey, did you know? Story sharing is how we connect as people. Yes, we can share facts and datas, and, we've done so much work, cataloged so many books and things like that. But sharing the stories is how we truly connect. And this can be done in meetings and in staff events. We connect emotionally with stories, and this also helps us see the bigger picture. It can help us see our colleagues again as whole people who have lives outside of the office. So you can say something like, oh, did you know while we've been working on this major project, Chris has been training for a marathon, things of that nature. You also want to highlight the person. Give the people on your team a spotlight. And the easiest way to do this is through staff profiles. And these can be posted on newsletters, on intranets, whatever communication platform you have. A lot of times these are now being done in video profiles that are shared to Instagram accounts or other social media accounts. And this can be as formal as an interview, like an actual sit-down narrative interview, or it can just be a silly worksheet that have fun questions. And you can always throw back to filling out these staff profiles with things like, what one project are you most proud of? You get a chance to learn who people are as people and not just as work colleagues. And this is great because it gives your, team a chance to engage on a personal level and across silos. People are always going to talk, oh, you're on a pub trivia team? I'm on a pub trivia team. Maybe let's go do trivia together and things of that nature. You're also, and this is incredibly important, as we saw in the Padlet, sharing achievements. And again, use all of those office communication platforms. And you want to think of, major projects completed, and you can share things like the numbers of books cataloged, milestones on a projects and things of that nature. But it can also be little things. Did someone go through a round of chemo treatment and they finally got to ring the bell? That might be a big thing in that person's life, but it could be just something you note in a newsletter. So we in our library are big on sharing conference presentations and publications that go on our monthly newsletter and link where we can, but we also send these materials out to the entire university marketing newsletter. And our marketing team likes to promote that work as well. Because one, we are awesome. This is one reason we like to do this, but two, it reminds people outside of the library how awesome we are. If you are at an academic library, you often know that there is that divide between librarians and teaching faculty. And part of the reason we do this sort of work within our library is to remind our teaching faculty that our librarians are, one, teachers too, and also they are faculty. They present, they publish, and that just sort of helps level the playing field, and we have less of that split between our teaching faculty and our librarian faculty. And this doesn't just have to be related to work achievements. If someone is proud of something they did, share that. My one colleague started a garden in her backyard, and she wanted to say, hey, I have this massive garden. It did really well. Oh, and by the way, I'm bringing a lot of food in because we grew way too many hot peppers. And so something like that just reminds you of who your team members are as people. Then you can also put out requests for help. And this is particularly important for upper management or middle management. You can ask for volunteers to opt in to major cross-departmental projects and initiatives. If you are a supervisor who has a team of staff, encourage them to take things on if they have the bandwidth, or if they can't do so now, say, hey, maybe you want to consider this later. This lets staff and colleagues say, yes, I am good at something and I want to do it. It helps them take ownership. And this can have cross-departmental benefits because, again, you are matching people's skills to projects that need to get done, and it can reduce the silos. And it also provides a change of pace to certain work. Sometimes we get in a rut, and this can let people get out of that rut by trying something new. You can also forward opportunities for growth to your staff. This can be, calls for content, calls for presentations, volunteers for projects, or even just something you see, oh, this OER book looks interesting. I thought you might be interested in it. Send it to people with the skill sets. Most importantly, tell them why you think they should do this. Encourage them because you think you are perfect for this, or promote yourself. I think you would be a great speaker and things of that nature. It helps bolster their skill, not just their skills, but their feeling that, yes, I can do this sort of work. And finally, and most importantly, show up. Whenever you can, inside and outside of the office, show up to cheerlead. If you can't show up in person, consider cards or congratulations. Like when I had a baby, yeah, no one's going to show up in the hospital room, but it was great when I finally came back to maternity leave to see a small pile of cards on my desk saying, welcome back, congratulations, we missed you. It was a nice mood boost for when I was like, I don't know if I can be a mom and work. Oh God, it calmed me so much. So being able to show up and know that I was supported really gave me the boost I needed to get back to work. And people like to be noticed and recognized. And you can do this even with the people who do not want to publicly promote themselves. You can at least quietly acknowledge their good work. And when you show up and support your team, you are giving them that safety net of trust that helps build a resilient and strong workplace culture. But this work is not easy. There are hurdles. Again, some of this has to be opt-in or handled delicately. Some people, again, just don't want to be noticed. So do keep that in mind. So why doesn't this work sometimes? Well, first, safety. Sometimes there is workplace trauma. Some people just do not feel safe speaking up at work. They have fear from previous managers or previous workplaces. So the first thing you want to do to create a culture of safety is to audit yourself and your workplace. And you can do this through self-assessment. Just sit down and think, where am I a good manager? Where am I not a good manager? Where am I a good colleague? Where am I not a good colleague? And then you can also consider doing an anonymous survey to get that feedback from others. And this, you can show why an employee's skills are needed and valued. So you can connect one-on-one with employees to be like, you have this skill, we really value it on this sort of project. And you can connect their skills to workplace goals. You can also have an open door policy where you say, hey, my door is open, you can talk to me about anything. And you can invite that sort of feedback through targeted invitations. You should also provide reward and praise whenever possible. And, this sometimes I see it in parenting. My daughter responds much better to positive feedback than she does to when I say, no, don't do that. And so rewarding and praising in a positive way whenever possible is a good idea. And then this lets you build on people's existing strengths. You also don't want to punish, but give opportunities for growth and training. So if something does not go well, you can say, okay, that project did not go well. How can I provide support? Because usually when something goes wrong, there's missing training or there's missing tools. And so to avoid that outcome in the future, instead of blaming the person, you can blame it on the idea that, okay, we were missing training and tools. Here's how we can focus on providing those so that does not happen again. We all make mistakes and we're all learning from that. And so instead of punishing, we just provide for better training. And then we also want to provide consistency and equity. So provide equitable, training and tools for those on your team, provide equitable opportunities for growth. And it's not on the slide, but give thanks. When people notice they are recognized for their hard work, creates a safer workplace environment. Another reason why this is difficult is imposter syndrome. This is that persistent, uneasy feeling or anxiety that one has not truly achieved their success on their own through their own hard work and skills. Essentially, you feel like a fraud, you feel like you're faking it, and that someone's going to learn the truth that you're not very good at any moment. We all can feel this from time to time, even those of us who have been in the same position for ages. But some people feel this worse than others. And while you can't fix this feeling of imposter syndrome, you can help alleviate some of the anxiety around it. So first, acknowledge these feelings. We've all had them. You can share your story of how you felt like an imposter before. Then you can listen, hear why people feel like they're not good enough. You might be able to identify something that you can tangibly fix. You want to connect their known skills to positive outcomes so you can focus on the facts. You did X, and because of that, we achieved Y. And you can fight, these feelings of imposter syndrome with evidence. Again, show those tangible accomplishments. You can also reframe the negative thoughts. I know that you feel like you can't do this, but did you see how when you worked on this, we did this? Go back and reframe things in a more positive light. You can also write out accomplishments. This is a good thing for everyone to do, but it feels more tangible in the moment when someone is going through a moment of high anxiety. At least once a year, I like to sit down and write down all of my tangible accomplishments. And then, okay, it makes me feel better that I know what I'm doing. And then you, most importantly, want to celebrate the wins. When something goes well, acknowledge it and celebrate it. And this is an ongoing activity. Imposter syndrome doesn't disappear after one meeting. And the more you do this kind of work, the more your team and you will trust that the things you say and do are true. And so the more you say, yes, you can do this, yes, you can do this, the less of that imposter syndrome will come through. Self-doubt is closely related to and is a part of imposter syndrome, but it's different in that it can be both on the individual and the team level. It's more of a lack of confidence in a skill set or capabilities and less about a feeling, that feeling of being fake. And so first is clarify what the doubt is. Does someone doubt their skills, doubt that they did something correctly? Do they doubt that their personality fits? Try to identify what the doubt is. And then provide support in the form of training and tools. Sometimes you simply just need to send someone to an offsite training program for a week and then they're good to go. Reaffirm your commitment to help. You are not there to punish, but to provide support and assistance. And again, write out the accomplishments. Showing something on, in a tangible way makes it more real. And you can share the positive results of, see, look at what you did. We did this training and now you're doing a great job, and it can help remove that self-doubt. At the team level, you're going to want to be realistic. Are you asking something or being asked to do something that simply cannot be done? Do not set up your team to fail. Ask for help and resources on behalf of your team. And one thing I like to point out here is I once had to close some campus libraries and I was giving an incredibly short timeline. And I did the math and I went back to our director and I said, realistically, there are not enough hours in the day for us to physically move this many books. I used the data I had, I did the math, I said, you are setting us up to fail. If you would like this done in this 2-week time frame, we need more people. Like we literally just need more bodies in the library. And what they were able to do was to hire another group of people to just literally go and pull some books and put them in boxes for us. The alternative would have been they expand the deadline. And so this is what you can do as a supervisor is not set up your team to fail, because if I had done that, my team would have had doubt about being able to complete this kind of work going forward in the future. And this is where office politics comes in. Office politics are all the behaviors and activities that lead to these hierarchies of power. And these may be tied to a formal chain of command, or it may be simply people trying to craft spheres of influence around themselves. As a supervisor, remember, you are an umbrella. You are not a sieve. Protect your team. You can't keep everything from falling on them, but you can do your best to keep the worst out of the way. Sometimes you have to take that big leap on behalf of your team. And if you've been there for a while, everyone knows the bad eggs in an office workplace. Use your power to work around those bad eggs. And sometimes things simply can't be fixed, but you do not have to cascade that negativity down. So you can warn your team, hey, this is coming down. I am sorry. There's not much I can do here. I'm going to do my best to support you. So again, set your team up for success. You can do this through a buddy system, interdepartmental mentoring, anything you can do to connect people to what they need. Introduce people to allies in other departments, and do not express jealousy or negativity yourself. We all feel it. Sometimes you're jealous. Why did they get a promotion and I didn't? Keep that out of the workplace, because if you are expressing this negativity out loud, your team is going to wonder, well, what are they saying about me? And again, you want to create that level of trust. So stay neutral in negative situations and work the problem, not the person. And this can help you focus on inclusion and collaboration to set your team up for success. And then you're also going to want to explain, the reality of what's happening, but also ways to cope. And again, do your best to do the hard part for your team. For example, if another manager stonewalls you on a project, you do the pushing back and following up on behalf of your team. Do not farm it out to someone else with lesser power. Even if it makes you uncomfortable, that is what you were in that role for. And so work your formal and informal networks on behalf of your team. If you have the power, use it to help others. You can also encourage positive and open communication. More communication can help alleviate some of those spheres of influence that people tend to create around themselves in office politics. It helps sort of burst the bubble. And in worst case scenarios, get HR or, your C-suite level involved. They are there for a reason. Don't let one bad egg ruin a whole department organization. Logistics can also cause a problem. You need to develop a deep knowledge of your organization in order to navigate it well. Some people just don't know the what, the who, the how, and this is particularly true of larger organizations. Logistics are all those little details and workflows and processes that you need to have a sense of to, do your work well in your particular organization. And a lot of this knowledge comes with time, and you as a manager or supervisor are in a position to share that with your team. If you're new, you're in a position to ask questions that others feel like they can't. Because you're new, you can say, hey, I don't know this. What do I do? And so you are the first step. Make it clear that people can come to you with anything and you can get the ball rolling. And again, make those connections and introductions. Connect people wherever you can so that they can work on their own. You can also formalize decision trees and pathways to show how things work, how decisions are made, who does what, and why. And where you can provide material support in the form of tools, resources, time, funding, whatever it needs. You can also provide direction through change. Offices change all the time. You can sort of be that guide and be that consistent spot through vague periods. And then you're going to want to follow up and check in. Did that work? Okay, what can I do better next time? And so, what are the benefits of doing this? And it's both personal and organizational. So, on a personal level, promoting the work on your team and creating this environment of trust can reduce imposter syndrome. Being recognized helps people feel less fake. They will have more trust in their own skills, and this can boost their confidence. They get in the position of thinking, yeah, I can do this. And that can be self motivating. One win leads to another, leads to another. And this can help with career pathing and exploration. It lets your team members see their future within a specific organization or a career field. And this can then in turn help skill growth. It gives people practice. People are willing to take risk and learn new things if they are in this environment of support and trust. And this, in the end, can increase overall workplace happiness. People are happier when their contributions are recognized. On an organizational level, this promotes a person-centered workplace. People are people, or as opposed to just cogs in an office. We are not automatons, and we need to recognize that. And doing this kind of work can uncover hidden talents. You never know when people have hidden skills that can be used on different projects. And that skill growth will, build upon itself. People will want to grow when their good work is noticed, and then they will want to grow more. And this can improve workplace efficiency and reduce silos because it breeds understanding of what others do. And this can help with innovative projects. It lets people make suggestions wherever they're needed and not just within their siloed areas. And so back burner projects might get worked on because someone might take on something simply because they've been given the chance to do it. And again, workplace happiness. People like working with other people who recognize their good work, which leads to increased employee retention. Recognition and acceptance matter for emotional well-being, and the happier someone is in the workplace, the more likely they are to stay. It's a common knowledge that people do not leave offices, they leave bad managers. And I'm sure we have all experienced that. So doing this sort of work and creating trust with your team can increase workplace happiness, which makes people want to stay at your organization. So where do you want to work? It's just good practice to promote your team. We're all in this together. It makes your work more person-centered and, dare I say, fun. It's a lot more fun to work at an organization where people trust who you are as a human being. And when you promote your team, you are creating the kind of positive environment that everyone wants to work in. And so if you want to do this kind of work at an organization, you can develop an action plan. And Devin, if you want to drop, I think we can put the file upload. I created a handout where you can do this sort of work. And it basically walks you through, how to assess your team, how to connect people with the skills, and then how to connect them with the overall growth of an organization. And so use this, adapt it for your workplace, but sitting down and spending some time like this not only helps you see who you are as a manager, but it helps you learn more about your team. And it can help you uncover where your blind spots are. It's not often that we take the time to self-assess the work that we do. And so just spending some time on this, sometimes it might seem silly to be like, of course I know my team. I've worked here for years. But when you sit down and formally try to think about this, you learn, okay, this is what I need to work on. And that can make you a better manager and colleague. And so I want to leave plenty of time for questions. If you're interested in more of my work, it's on the screen, or if you have any questions after the fact, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Megan. Folks, feel free to share questions in the chat. One question that came up in registration a few times was like how to encourage a discouraged library team or staff when maybe you're inheriting a team where morale is really low.
I went through that at a previous organization where there was a little bit of workplace trauma I had to deal with. And so I started out with an all staff meeting where it's basically like, I am your new supervisor. I want to learn about you. So part of that is we're going to have monthly team meetings just to get on the same page. But then I also want to meet with you individually. And it started out on a monthly basis and then moved to quarterly, but these meetings were opt-in. because I didn't want people to feel like they were forced to do it. And so I set these up privately. I would email each team member individually, and I was like, okay, do you want to meet? Great, let's find a time. And then when we would meet, we would do it outside of our space. We went to a completely separate area. And I always started every meeting saying, everything you tell me here stays with me. I will not promote this to my supervisor unless you would prefer that I do. And that's where I asked those 5 questions. You know, how things are going. What do you like about your work? What do you not like about your work? What do you want to be working on? What can I do better? And at first, it was kind of like pulling teeth to get answers out of people. It was very short, very quiet. What would happen is, as they slowly started to open up to me and I was able to adapt the work of our department, they saw, oh, okay, things are better. She's putting the feedback I'm giving to her into action. I was able to get resources. I was able to rejigger some projects to get personalities separated. And I would never, because no one saw these meetings formally happen, no one quite knew where the feedback was coming from. And that anonymity gave me a chance to adapt things to better suit the personalities and the workflow of our offices. It's hard, and it will seem at first like they're not going to open up to you. And it's simply, you have to start small, and you can always share, hey, I'm doing this because I want to learn about you. I want to be a better manager, because it's pretty normal in library work that we are not given formal leadership or supervision or managerial training. I have yet to hear of a library that's outside of an R1 that does a formal like leadership training program. And so you have to start small. And then put that feedback that you get into action. And if you can't put that feedback into action, you can at least go back to the person to be like, hey, I heard you. Here is why I cannot enact this. Like, there was one problem I was trying to fix, and I simply had to go back to this person and say, I know what you need. I know what you asked for. There is simply no money in the budget. But at least they knew I heard them. And so going back and saying, I heard you, and trying to actually act upon what you have learned can go a long way for people to learn, okay, they're at least hearing me.
Yeah, thank you. Folks, feel free to share those questions. We have this time. Another question that came up pretty consistently in registration was how to promote without sounding like a broken record. Um, Curious if you had suggestions for that.
So I'm just going to go out there and say it doesn't matter if you sound like a broken record. I am an outreach librarian. I say the same 6 things over and over and over again. It's because most of the time it is in one ear and the other. Um, At our library, we sometimes say we're the yappy little dog. We will happily bark at you until something finally happens. And that's normally with campus-wide projects. But the thing is, people sometimes need to hear the same message 20 or 30 times before it finally breaks through. Sometimes it's simply a matter if they didn't hear it the first time. Sometimes they didn't care. Sometimes you just have to keep doing it. I have told all of my colleagues every month, give me your kudos. Tell me what awesome things you have done. Literally every month, the same 6 people get this email from me. You would think by now they'd just send it to me. They don't. Um, Sometimes I don't think it's a problem to be a broken record. Eventually people will start to react, and then you can ease off the message a little bit. Like when we moved into our brand new library space for a month, all I said is, we're in this building. We moved. We're over here. That was literally every message. And now that we're, 3 months into the semester, I don't have to say that as much. I still have to say it a little, but not as much. So yeah, I personally don't think it's a problem. If you feel like you're annoying people, maybe just change the wording or change the format. So instead of an email, pick up the phone. Instead of a phone call, bump into them in person. Just change the way you share your message.
Yeah, absolutely. We got some responses asking, like, from a central administrative standpoint, what are some things that um, directors, assistant directors, deans can be doing to better support and advocate for staff, especially because they might be in certain conversations at a higher level.
I would say the number one thing you can start with is a 360 assessment. Uh, we always seem to review and assess the people below us, but how often are we given a chance to evaluate the people above us or our colleagues? I worked in one library, and this only ever happened once. In the 10 years I was there, once were we allowed to evaluate the library director, which was better than none. But it's important to get that 360 assessment, because how do you improve if you're not hearing from those who work with you, either below you or with you as colleagues? And so the first thing I would say is do a 360 assessment. And there's plenty of templates for that all over the place. Some formal universities, they will have that happen. But that's the first thing to start with. But it can also be, if you are in that upper level, particularly in bigger organizations, maybe shadow someone for half a day. What does their workflow look like? If you don't understand the nitty gritty of what is going on, you're not going to understand it when they come to you with a problem, because if you don't understand why that problem is happening, that's not a good thing. So I would say, particularly if you're in an upper level, shadow someone for half a day, or at least meet with them regularly to be like, okay, what's going on? I can't I know people say there are too many meetings, and I agree. You can do these in 20-minute meetings once a month. You do not need to be meeting every week for an hour, but simply give a chance for people to give you that feedback. And it's going to hurt, but sometimes you just have to sit there and take it when you hear negative things about yourself. I have heard it, and your first gut reaction is to say, that's not me. If they're telling you it's that, that's how they perceive you, and that's what's important. So sometimes you just have to sit in those meetings and grin and bear it, and not cascade down, that negativity to the person in front of you. So 360 assessment, shadowing, and meeting with people regularly to get consistent feedback.
We have a question that just came in from chat from Ethan saying, what aspects of the assessment/promotion process should change if your team is primarily made up of short-term or transitory employees, like student employees?
So this is difficult. I have worked with a bunch of student employees, and we never had a formal assessment process because, again, they're short-term and transitory. But I tried to make it within my department. I started with, I might be your first job. You might only be here 10 hours a week for one semester, but guess what? Who is writing your evaluation letters or your recommendation letters if you go to apply for a full-time job? So sometimes you can hold that little carrot to be like, let's evaluate your work simply because you are going to go for another job one day, and I'd love to be able to provide good feedback if I get a phone call. There have been some employees where I had to say, you may list me as a, person to recommend your work. However, I'm not going to say a ton of positive things. I've had to give that poor feedback. And sometimes, formalizing it can help. You can also consider, you know, does the assessment have to be so formal? Can you do something, every 2 months where you're like, hey, let's just sit down, spend 10 minutes. How's it going? Like, not all assessment has to be formal. I personally am vehemently against the year-end evaluation if that is all you do, because then what's the point? If you do a year-end annual assessment and that is the only feedback that person ever gets, that's going to hurt them. You can do that big formal assessment, but then maybe quarterly, you want to do a quick check-in. Hey, what's going on? What's working? What's not working? How can we get you up to that better formal assessment? So not all of these assessments and promotion processes have to be formalized. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, Ethan, feel free to follow up in the chat if you have follow-up questions.
I know at our library with the part-term employees, we're like, if you're good enough and you want to come back next semester, you got a 25-cent raise, which seems crazy now, but that was 15 years ago. Oh God, that was 15 years ago. So, sometimes it can be, oh, you get a little raise, even if you're, a little bit of money goes a long way in college. It's one more beer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely remember that in my student job in undergrad, that going a long way. There was a really interesting question that came up in registration. Um, the person wanted to gather talking points about people management strategies in order to advocate for time to invest in people management work at their library. So I was curious kind of what your take is on that.
So I have some resources on the slides here. I just popped them up. This is more about supporting your team, but to advocate for people management, sometimes you just have to be brutally honest and say, I was never formally trained in this. No one was. We need it.
Yeah.
Um, it is known as the Peter Principle, where people are promoted to their point of competence. It is a known problem. We tend to promote people into leadership positions for their good work, when realistically, they might be really good at their job, but being really good at the job you do doesn't necessarily make you a good people manager. I never received formal management training. I had to learn it. I sought it out. So sometimes you just have to be brutally honest about it. You can also make it not so hard in the sense that you can be like, can we bring in one person for a half-day workshop for everyone in a supervisory position? If you're in a bigger organization, sometimes this is already paid for through HR. It doesn't necessarily have to be within the library itself. If money is a problem, there are a lot of books out there. There are a lot of webinars. You can create a guide and say, hey, you are a new manager. Here are our standards that we expect you to meet. Here are some resources to learn about them. Let's do a mentoring program. At the very least, set up new managers with mentors. It doesn't have to be someone directly above them. It can be someone in another department. If you're on a university campus, it can be someone in a completely different department entirely. Set them up with a mentor, give them a safe space to learn how to be a better manager. This is not uncommon. In fact, again, I don't know of any library that has a formalized management training program.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and as you said, like, I think leadership training is ad hoc in most libraries. I think in my grad program, we had one course on leadership and management, and that was a recent addition to the
Yeah.
curriculum.
And if you need to make the case, you can always put out a survey and take the negative feedback from it and say, this is what we're hearing about our leaders. They're not good. We need this training. You can use what I like, well, everyone refers to as anecdata. It doesn't have to be formalized data. It can be stories that help build your case. And if you see one manager who is constantly having turnover, sometimes it's low pay, more often than not, it's bad management. I would rather be in a job that paid me less with a great manager than in a job that paid me more with a manager I couldn't stand working under every day. And that's true of most people.
Do you have specific insights on kind of like anticipating change or dealing with change and how to communicate that to um, direct reports, but also colleagues?
I have been through a couple of institutional changes, some big, some small, some involving many layoffs. Transparency. Be as transparent as humanly possible. Share what you are legally allowed to share. And if you cannot share something, say, I have that answer. I am not allowed to share it with you until try to, set the expectations. Um, when you're going through change, explain the why. People are a lot more comfortable, if you just say we're changing and they don't know the why, even if they're normally the type of person who would go along with you, if they don't understand why this is happening, like, is it a budget cut? Is it you're losing someone with massive amounts of institutional knowledge? Is it just suddenly this work of the department is no longer needed? Like, share the why. That helps bring people in a little bit, but it's transparency, sharing the why, and setting expectations. You will still get pushback. There are just certain personalities. I'm one of them. I hate change. I can't stand it. Every time something is different, I freak out a little bit. Like today, I'm presenting from a desk I do not normally present from. And it took me about an hour to just be comfortable with that idea. Like, some people just don't deal well with change, but if you're there with them, if you hear them out, open door policy, that can help go a long way. Again, creating that community of trust where it's like, I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to do my best to support you, and being transparent through it all.
Folks, one last call for questions as we wrap up. Also, do we want to take a look at the Padlet really quickly and see if there's some other responses?
Doesn't look like anything new came in, but every time you promote someone, think about how, it made you feel. And consider, if you're feeling good about it, so is the person you're promoting. Go back to
Yeah, it absolutely makes a difference. And I think I'm going to go through all those resources that you put on that slide for later. It's definitely so helpful.
And I will also have these up on my website later, and
Great.
my notes are there. And just remember, when you do this kind of work, it does start to feel icky at first, but after a while, you get so used to it, you don't care. Like at this point, I don't care that I, feel icky that I'm asking people to share their kudos. After a while, you just get used to it. The
Yeah.
more you do
The,
it, the more comfortable it becomes.
mhm. Yeah, I definitely think it's establishing that sort of routine and expectation can feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. And the more you do it, the more the team will come along. They're like, oh, okay, this is okay. And
Yeah.
when they see their colleagues promoting themselves, even people who are shy tend to be like, oh, wait, I have something to share now. Like, hey,
Mhm.
encourage it.
One thing for folks to look into at different institutions is sometimes in universities, there's different people in HR who are trained in StrengthsFinder assessments, different ways to kind of do certain assessments like that. But that's one that I've noticed a lot of different organizations using because it comes at looking at people's assets and what they bring to the organization and the variety rather than just like putting them in a personality box. Um, if you're looking for kind of not a shortcut, but like a template for having some of these conversations.
And in libraries, we almost all have that wonderful line, other duties as assigned. And
Yeah.
normally we go, ooh, that usually deals with cleaning up things I don't want to clean up. But it can also be let people craft their job a little bit to better suit who they are as people.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a certain flexibility afforded to us in our roles in this field.
Yeah,
All
I'm a
right.
big fan of saying, I'm going to do it until you tell me not to. Uh, until someone formally tells me no, I'm going to keep going.
Definitely. Well, Megan, thank you so much for providing this. Folks, you will see an email from me tomorrow with the recording, slides, Padlet, handout, and a feedback survey. So please let me know if you'd like more leadership development webinars, what topics. Um, any sort of feedback is appreciated and welcome. But thank you all so much for being here this Thursday afternoon.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, take care.